Hi, I'm Claire. Welcome to my channel, Claire Bobbins, and thanks to Jen from Today in Jen's Sewing Room for Friday Sews, and here's this week's Friday Sews. So, something a little bit different this week. I thought I'd have a bash at the 20 questions for sewists. So, it was Diane in Stitches, my lovely friend Diane in Stitches, who brought my attention to this, and I think also Zelda has done this. I think it originates from Michelle in Michigan. So more details on that in below in the information box. So here we go, 20 questions for sewists. I'll see you in just a couple of ticks. Welcome back. I have my iPad here with my questions, so if I can't remember the next one and I need to refer to them, here they are. So excuse me referring to this. So how do I feel about using a new pattern? Ooh, nice one. Yes, a good one to start on. How do I feel about using a new pattern? I quite like new patterns, quite like the fact I might not have made them before. It has pros and cons for me. I used to print off and stick together all my PDFs, and I used to trace all my paper patterns. More recently, I have been doing more PDF sewing than I have paper pattern sewing, just because I think that's just the way my tastes have gone. When I'm looking at patterns that are new to me, most of them have been PDFs, and I think that's okay for small things. And yeah, but as I've been making more things, and particularly as I've been YouTubing, which I was new to in January, and needed a little bit more rigour on how much I got done every week, I've been going more and more to, well, I've been exploring new patterns because it's been interesting subject for a vlog. I've had new patterns suggested to me from my subscribers, and most of the things I've done recently have been new patterns. I've also had, I've taken part in the Fabric Wheel of Fate series that Carol from Sew Carol started, and that's been an ideal opportunity to trial new patterns. There might well have been patterns from my stash. I've got quite a large pattern stash. They might have been in there a couple of years, and I've been intending to make them and not quite got around to it. So the Fabric Wheel of Fate's been a perfect vehicle for those. The casual things tends to be quite easy, especially if they're quite loose and baggy. I made this lovely hive sweater. This was one of my first Fabric Wheel of Fate makes. It was really obvious from the finished garment measurements that I wasn't going to need to really make any adjustments to this, and I really like it, and it's perfect for this weather, and it was great to sew it up in a fabric that I'd had hanging around in my stash for ages. But more fitted garments, I have to go through quite a rigid toiling or muslin sequence of fitting, even though I have my sloper, because of my shape, because I'm a bit busty. I have to adjust most patterns, even those that come with ready-made full bust adjustments. I usually have to tweak a little bit, and that can be a little bit daunting at times. It takes quite a lot of time. I can't just grab a new pattern, print it off and sew it up. It's not quite so easy as that. Can do with trousers, and have done with trousers. More recently, to make it a little bit easier on myself, I've been having my new patterns AO printed and just cutting them. I've not bothered with any tracing. That's really speeded things up, and I'm quite a fan of that, and I'll be doing more of that, I think. Yeah, I like a new pattern. I like the challenge. My last, how many makes? 5 or 6 makes have all been new patterns, and I must admit I tend to do wearable toiles, don't often do a muslin, although I have just done a muslin for the Hollyoak, Cashmerette Hollyoak dress, just for the bodice, very rough in calico. I haven't quite finished that. It's a bit of a, I probably could have made the dress twice by now, but yeah, it's made me stop and think and mess about. It's a joy when I try something on that somebody else has made in a size that ought to fit me and it fits me perfectly. That doesn't happen very often. That happened with the Ilford jacket recently, and I have an Ilford jacket cut out, and I've started doing the preparation before I sew it together. So that was quite exciting, and a new pattern to me. Yeah, so I like the challenge of a new pattern, but I did fabric selections for my holiday make plans, and several of them are makes that I'm planning to do with patterns I've recently toiled. So it's going to be almost exclusively patterns I've used at least once before and really liked, and that I've been dying to make up in my more precious fabrics. So yeah, that'll be nice. The patterns are there, they're ready to go. I can cut them out, sew them up, and that will speed things up enormously, and I'll end up producing things very quickly. I have my tried and trues, particularly things like the Cashmerette Concorde T-shirt that I'm wearing now. Didn't need to do any. Did I toile it? I don't think I might have done. I might have done a wearable toile just to try it, but fitted me right from the get-go. Didn't need to do anything at it. I've also did do a toile, made the Cashmerette Irving dress recently. A knit dress, loved it, fitted me straight out of the box. Yeah, so a bit of both. I'm more comfortable with a pattern company I've used before. Yeah, the ones I've used before, Love Notions, Itch to Stitch, Cashmerette, and now Sinclair patterns that I've just done. More comfortable with them. They do bust cup sizes, and I get a really good fit without a massive amount of work to do. So does that answer the first question? I think it probably does. Probably too much detail. Moving on swiftly. Do I remake and mend? Yes, I mend. Often clothes for my husband. I do mend and repair clothes for myself. And I do keep old clothes in fabrics that I like, jeans and so on. Or, I might, things that are me made that don't fit, that I want to remake. I do remake those. Doesn't happen so much now, and when I toile something, if I'm doing a muslin, it tends to be in something like calico, which will then go into my rag bag for dusters and so on. So there's not necessarily any remaking to make there. Or if I'm doing a new trouser pattern, I'll use a cotton lawn to just do a pair of shorts, get the fit, and then again that will go into my own personal rag bag for rags for the garage, or dusters or that type of thing. So and I have my sloper, which speeds things up. So do I remake and mend? Yes. Do I make toiles and mock-ups? I've probably answered that already. Yes. It's pretty, my shape doesn't lend itself to everyday pattern making. I'm sure not everybody, most people's shapes don't. I'm sure everybody has to make minor adjustments. I have a 6-inch difference between high bust and full bust. I have to do for FBAs. I need a darted bodice. I quite like playing around with darts. I've got better at fitting and toiling. I like it when it's done and I can get a good fit, and then I can repeat. So yeah, mock-ups, yeah, and I do them. I either make them in a cheaper fabric, or an older fabric that I'm not feeling precious about, that I know I will wear, or I make a minimum. I might, if I was doing a muslin, I certainly wouldn't be overlocking. It'd be roughly cut out. It wouldn't be stay stitched. It'd just be very quickly machine basted together to check fit, and that would be it, move on, and that would then go into my rag bag. So or indeed to be made up into something else. Pre-washing fabrics. Okay, question 4. How do you feel about pre-washing fabrics? I almost always pre-wash my fabrics. I usually sew with natural fibres. Lots of cotton, some wools, some silks, lots of viscose, and they all shrink. Unless the wool, it would depend on the wool, but I do hand wash and gentle wash wools before I make with them. I tend to wash and dry them in a way that would be tougher and harder than how they would be washed and dried in normal wear. So cottons and viscoses and stuff like that go into a regular wash. It would be a 40-degree wash, and then they'd go into the tumble dryer. And then I would make up the garment. And then I don't tumble dry my me-made clothing unless it's tracksuits and that type of, and it's not summer. So normally stuff like that would go on the line. Most things I air dry in my utility room, or I air dry on the line. But with heavy fleeces and the British climate, oh dear, sorry, excuse me, I've just been out for a meal. It's making me yawn. I do apologise. Yeah, with heavy fabrics and the British damp climate, sometimes with tracksuit bottoms, they have to go in the tumble dryer. Everything else would air dry or line dry, and I pre-wash the fabrics, one for shrinkage because I work mostly with natural fibres, and two, even with a polyester fabric, which is less likely, well, they don't really shrink at all, I would be washing just to get rid of any finishing, any finish on the fabric, any starching, and you know, the grubbiness of a fabric that might have been sat in a mill or sat on a dusty shelf in a fabric shop. Yeah, not always the cleanest of places, fabric mills. Yeah, I like to know my stuff's clean before I actually start working with it. So that is my pre-washing. Do I finish my seams, and how? I always finish my seams. My most favourite seam finish for woven garments is a French seam. I love the clean internal finish of a French seam. Quite like flat fell seams as well. But you know, I'm not offended if I have to do an overlock seam. I don't always match my overlock threads. Sometimes they work, sometimes I just put black on a dark fabric and white on a light fabric. Occasionally, if I happen to have the right coloured thread, I will do that. But often on the inside of a garment it's white or a lighter colour anyway. I don't always do a sewn finish. I have the Vogue 8577 dress. It's fully lined. It's a 1950s style, very full shirt dress with buttons down the front, placket, and it's fully lined. And I do that with a regular seam, and I pink the seams in the bodice. Can't remember if I pink the seams in the skirt as well. They might be overlocked, but the bodice seams, I pink them. And if it's good enough for Chanel, it's good enough for me. And they're fine. Those dresses have been washed, laundered several times. They're absolutely fine. No signs of fraying. It's worked really well. But all of the seams are enclosed inside the lining. So, and I think that makes a difference. I think anything that's not lined needs to be able to withstand wear and tear. I like a Hong Kong finish and a bound finish. Don't do that very often. I'm currently working on that on my Ilford jacket, so and enjoying doing the bias binding on that for the Hong Kong seam. So yes, I always finish my seams in some way or other, usually overlock or French seam, always overlock on knits, and occasionally bound. Okay, what's my favourite sewing activity? I think it's the actual sewing and construction of a garment, putting it together, pinning it, and then putting it through the machine. I'm not really worried about which aspect of sewing and what kind of sewing I'm doing. I like to use the right foot. I like the overlocker. I like the cover stitch. I've been getting into some of the creative cover stitch with my new Primo. I like doing buttonholes. I love buttons. Love doing buttons and buttonholes. Yeah, like top stitching. That's my favourite thing. It's going to ask me probably about my least favourite, isn't it now? My least favourite. Number 7. What's my least favourite? Sticking together, printing off and sticking together PDF patterns is by far my least favourite part of the process. Closely followed by cutting out the paper pattern. I don't mind so much adjusting the paper pattern to get a good fit, you know, doing narrow shoulder adjustments and full bust adjustments, and because by the time I've got to that stage, I'm kind of well into the fitting process, and I'm quite happy to do that. And then after that, my least favourite is cutting out. So sticking together and cutting out are my least favourites. Sticking together is the worst. It was so good getting my AO printed patterns and only having to cut the pattern out. That was brilliant. And I do it with, generally, most of it I do with an old disc in a separate rotary cutter, and I do it on a mat, and it's much quicker. And then I just tidy up and do the fiddly bits with my paper scissors. Yeah, PDFs, the bane of my life. Stash fabric or new fabric? Ooh, bit both. It's got to be both. I have some real favourite stash fabrics, and I'm planning to sew some of them up for my holiday makes. And I've selected some real precious ones from Italian designers. I'm not going to mention the name because the copyright police don't like it. So yeah, I have some really lovely stash fabrics that I bought, all as dead stocks, mostly fairly expensive, not ridiculously expensive. You know, I'm not. A lot of them are paid maybe 25. I'm sorry, I do apologise. A lot of them are paid maybe £25 a metre, which I think is quite an expensive fabric, especially for something like a cotton or a viscose. I like a bargain, but I like to have fabrics in my stash that I can choose from, and a lot of how I sew is from my stash. I'll buy a new fabric with a garment in mind, it'll go into my stash, and then I'll work towards making it. Don't usually buy any fabrics without an idea of what I'm going to make in mind. At least what garment I'm going to make. I might not have a pattern for it. I've got a lovely big chunky wool knit down there, and I really don't know what I'm going to make with it. What pattern will be best, only because I haven't actually sewn with anything like that before. So the pattern I choose is going to be need a little bit of thought, because it is quite a chunky knit, and I'm going to have to think a bit about how I sew it together and how I finish it off. But yeah, if I bought a new fabric, I might occasionally, very occasionally, and have recently, with my most recent make, I planned the make. I toiled it in a cheap fabric that I knew I would wear. Did a wearable toile in a cheap fabric that I really like and have worn, and was lovely in this hot sun, hot summer. And then I bought a fabric specifically for that garment and have just sewn it up. And it's the most recent fabric I've bought, and it's complete. So that's a really nice way to sew. But I'm just as happy. I get a real buzz out of making up something that's been in my stash for ages, that I bought with an idea of something I was going to make with it, and then I finally made it up. I do like that. That's, to me, just as exciting. Although it's hard to resist the shiny new things when you see them. I'm a terrible magpie. Yeah, I don't like glitzy stuff. It's just that I like colour. I do like colour. So I'm not so much of a magpie. Which birds like colour? I don't know. Anyway, irrelevant. Are pockets a must? Are pockets a must? Pockets are very high on my ideal idea of an ideal garment. Particularly if it's a one-piece garment. If it's a one-piece garment, I really like pockets, because, you know, even if it's just for a tissue. In the summer, you know, I get hay fever, so it's lovely just to be able to pop a hand in a pocket when you've just got one garment on. I quite like wearing a dress and just feel that tissue in there. I really do like pockets. I don't often sew pockets just as they feature in a pattern. I like to anchor them into the waistband. I like my pockets to be quite big, quite sturdy. Not sturdy, but supported by the waistband. I like them to be fairly invisible. I don't really like, I'm not really into patch pockets. But I quite like a utility garment. Like my favourite trousers at the moment are the Largo cargos. They have quite big patch pockets on the side, utility pockets, and I like those. I use pockets. I put tissues in them. I wouldn't. It's rare that I'd put a phone in a pocket unless it was a bag or a coat, something a bit more substantial. But I do have stride green style stride leggings that I wear in the gym, and they have a deep pocket on either leg, and I have my phone in one, unless I'm doing an exercise where the phone could slip out, and I put it on the side, because my membership card for the gym is in my phone. My body track scan is in my phone. Don't look at my phone when I'm in the gym. I use it to get in. I use it to access the body scanner, and then the rest of the time it just follows me around or sits on a windowsill if I'm working in one area. But I like to have a pocket I can put it in. So yeah, pockets are very high on my ideal garment. List. Knits or wovens. 50-50. 50-50. Knits are quick to sew. Love t-shirts, love knit dresses, love making stuff to the gym, love doing, I made 4 tankinis last year. I make leggings and all stuff like that. I like wearing knits. Very comfortable in t-shirts during the day. Knit dresses I like. I like knits, but I think wovens take me longer to make, but I like sewing wovens. I like the formality of the construction. I like the fact they're a bit more dressy. We dance ballroom and Latin, and I like wearing dresses for that, and I like to wear a dress for practice as well as I have a group lesson, which is in the evening, and I always dress. So I feel like as though I dress as though I'm going out for an evening, not, so I like a dress that will work well for that particular type of activity. So yeah, I like wovens, love making trousers. There isn't a real type of garment I don't like making. I like making jackets from Ponte and Stable Knits. The Metro Blazer is a favourite. I've made 4 of those. There'll be more soon. I need a charcoal one. I've got some nice punty for that. Yeah, chunky knits. I've done quite a bit of the viscose brushed viscose knits. You know, made some nice long cardigans and things. This chunky knit, I can't just get it out. It's not in a convenient place to get it out, but it is very chunky. Not got a clue how I'm going to make that. I like knitting as well. I enjoy knitting. I make my own knit garments. So knits and wovens, it's definitely 50-50. Favourite fasteners or no fasteners? I'm a bit of a button girl. I do zips on trousers, no problem, and zips on bags. I don't have an issue with zips. I have been known to do invisible zips on dresses. I love a button placket. I just love shirt dresses, button plackets. Yeah, I love buttons, love really nice buttons. I love the Pigeon Wishes buttons. Bought lots of those, used lots of those. I have a button stash. My favourite ones are the Pigeon Wishes, and then some unusual ones that I picked up at craft fairs. I've got some egg buttons on a blouse that I recently made of eggshell set in resin. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm really fussy about my buttons. I either go for the resin Pigeon Wishes ones, and I know there are a couple of other makers now making resin buttons, and they would be part of that list. Or I go for the recycled plastic buttons that are made from recycled plastics. Or I go for shell buttons or coconut husk buttons. I don't like buying ordinary plastic buttons. It's my sustainability bit of me coming through. I like the idea of sustainable buttons. Yeah, so fasteners. Oh, I also have, it's not a green machine, I have the blue version of the green machine. And I love doing all sorts of poppers and snap fasteners with that, and rivets, and yeah, use it a lot. Love it. Love using it. Do jeans buttons with it. I didn't have it when I did. I bought it because I did my first Sew Over It Sorrento crop jeans jacket, and I got through twice as many buttons as you were supposed to have for it, because I just I couldn't. I just kept ruining them. And it's costing me a fortune, because it was £5 for a packet. I needed 2 packets, and I think I bought 4, so I got through £20 worth of buttons when I actually should have got through £10 worth of buttons. Well, you don't need to do that very often to be able to afford a rivet press, do you? So, and the rivet press works every time, so it's very rare that I end up with something not working with that. So I have quite a few dies for it. It was bought for me as a Christmas present, and it gets a lot of use. So yeah, that's favourite fasteners. Something else on the ties. Now, what did I see? I can't remember which pattern it is. One of the it might be the Hervé jacket. And when the pattern came out and I saw the ties, I thought, oh, well, that just looks rubbish. Don't like that at all. And then they've really grown on me, and I don't know why. Why would tie fasteners grow on you? But they have. And recently, my lovely friend Sandra Stitch, hello Sandra if you happen to see this, she made a fabulous orange top with ties on the front. Oh, it's not a nice fabric. She doesn't like it if it's not, doesn't feel nice on her. It looks amazing. It's a gorgeous make, it's a lovely shape, and the ties look fantastic, and it's bright orange, and it's just gorgeous. Yeah, what a lovely, lovely make. It's just unfortunate it makes a skin itch, but yeah, they've really grown on me ties. Where did that come from? Never say never. Yeah, so sewing for self or others? Tricky one. That's a very tricky one. I used to sew for other people. In my 20s, when I didn't have a bean, didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, we were always broke, I bought myself my first proper sewing machine, my first overlocker, a saxophone, and a holiday abroad sewing for people. And I think I paid myself about £3 an hour. This was in the 80s, so it is a little while ago. But even so, that wasn't a lot of money then. But it enabled me to spend my summer holidays enjoying sewing and making for other people, and I was then able to buy some really nice sewing kit, some of which I still have, most of which it became obsolete and stopped working, but you know, I had it for 30 odd years. So, but there are stresses to sewing with people. I had a legal exec, anyway, somebody working in the magistrate's court who was a qualified legal person, and I made her a lovely wool smart suit and she loved it, and I made her a nice blouse and she loved it, but then she wanted it in a flannel and she wanted the same pattern, and I tried to persuade her that it wasn't going to, the fabric she'd chosen just wasn't going to perform in the same way as the lovely wool suiting that she'd had, and that I didn't think it would suit the pattern, and she insisted, and she paid for the fabric, and she didn't like it, and I didn't like it, and it didn't work for the pattern, and she never asked me to make her anything again after that. And I don't know how you avoid that. If she'd tried it in a shop, and of course you feel awful, but you've done your very best to persuade them not to have that choice, and she was quite insistent, and it worked, but it just never quite looked as nice as the wool suiting that I'd used for her. So it's very stressful making for other people. I made a couple of wedding dresses. Well, I made one wedding dress, and then I made some bridesmaids dresses, and I altered and fitted a wedding dress because the bride had lost. Well, one of the bridesmaids, I did all the fittings, got it all done nice and early, got the bodices all made, and then she came back for a fitting the week before the wedding, and she lost over a stone, and I had to completely remake the bodice. That was for one of the bridesmaids. The other bridesmaid was fine. So that was a bit disappointing because I thought I was ahead of the game. And then the bride had bought a dress and it didn't lie nicely, and she asked me to remake the bodice on that, which I did. And then I had another lady who wanted me to make her a wedding dress, and I did, and she came with the pattern, she came with the fabric, and she wanted lace on it, and it was a cream fabric, just polyester satin, and it was a cream fabric, and she wanted a cream lace. She brought white lace. It looked dreadful. So she said, well, I can dye it with tea. So I said, okay, well, and dye it with tea. She just brought it back, all this lace just stuffed in a carry bag, all dyed with tea. Oh. It took me hours to iron it all and get it off. Just like people. Oh, yeah. So I don't do any of that. Don't do any. I occasionally, I make for my husband. I make for my mother-in-law. I make gifts for friends. I don't make anything to sell. I don't take any payments for anything I've made anymore. People are always saying to me, my friend would say, Claire, you could get £50 for that jacket on the market. Yeah, but the fabric cost me 70 or 75, you know. Yeah, they don't understand, they don't get it. So I make for myself. I'm a selfish sewer. Well, I'm not, but myself, family, friends. Yeah. I think the nicest gift you can give somebody is to give them a gift of sewing. So my friend, a 60th birthday gift for my friend was a sewing workshop hosted at my house by a quilt designer who I knew very well, and that was great. We loved it, and we spent the day sewing together on this workshop. And I did make another very good friend. I only sew for good friends, appreciative good friends. Another good friend, I made her I sewed her a t-shirt, a fitted t-shirt. I fitted it, long sleeve, winter fabric, but a knit, and I made the t-shirt. But I also fitted the pattern and gave her a copy of the pattern. Well, I gave her the original pattern, and the name of a dressmaker who could make it up for her in whatever fabric she wanted. So she ended up with the toile, the finished one, and the pattern, and a way of getting it done again. So I thought that was quite a special Christmas present. YouTube or Instagram? I'm rubbish on Instagram. YouTube it is. You might think I'm rubbish on YouTube. Hopefully not. Dresses or separates? Oh, both. Yeah, both equal. I love a dress. Yeah. I do like all-in-ones. Love dresses with a passion. They're great for dancing in. Wear them all year round. Love layering them up with leggings, cotton dress, short sleeve cotton shirt dress. I love putting a long sleeve top under, and black leggings and boots, and then leaving it a bit unbuttoned so it almost acts like a duster. Love that look, that effect. Enjoy wearing that. I haven't made any jeans yet. Make a lot of Largo cargos, but I could do with some trousers that work well with boots for the winter. I've got some really nice boots that are great with skinny jeans, and I know skinny jeans not fashionable at the moment. Hopefully they'll come back. I'm a bit top heavy, so it's not always the best, most balanced look for me. But with big chunky boots and a winter coat and a hat, they're great for the farmer's market or walking when it's muddy. And I'd really like to have some nice me-mades that I can wear with them. I'm thinking to myself, I tend to wear separates when I'm just at home, in my comfies. But actually, the thing I've worn most recently, because it's been the perfect weight of garment to wear for the weather, have been my Sunday rompers that by Love Notions. I have 2 of them, and they're an all-in-one, and you get in them and out of them through the neck. So there's a bit of a palaver when you want to go to the loo, but I'm at home anyway. They're really comfy, and I've been wearing those to death. I've been wearing them just on rotation. The two of those. I've been going through the wash and straight back on again, and they've just been perfect. Probably wear more separates during the day and more dresses. Dresses feel a bit more formal to me, a bit more dressed up, like I've made a bit more of an effort. Yeah. How do I get rid of, pass on my me-mades? Okay. I haven't had to pass on very many of my me-mades, only 1 or 2. They're all natural fibres, although I do sew with polyester thread, so I do accept that there's a potential for them to go to landfill. We have some quite good clothing recycling type activities in Cheshire. We have like a bring and buy clothing sale that's run by a lady with a big farm, lots of storage. She collects second-hand clothing, and then she runs clothing sales, and you can go along and you take a big bag, and you pay £2 to fill the bag, and then you can redonate anything you're not wearing, and the whole clothing thing recycles. So you're not paying for a garment. The biggest issue with selling my me-mades through a charity shop is that the charity shops are only allowed to sell garments by law that have a care label in them. And it doesn't matter whether they're me-made or ready to wear. If they haven't got a care label in them, they're not allowed to sell them. So I do pass on to friends that I know they will fit. I've passed on a couple of t-shirts that I made and they were either a bit big or it didn't quite fit me, but they were nicely made, and the people were happy with those. I've passed on quite a few items through this clothing sale, and they were old ready to wear that no longer fit me, and me mades. I've tried putting a care label and size label in me mades, and they're in a bag, but I have yet to try them at the local charity shop. If they still can't sell them, even with a label, it's a pinned in label, handwritten on, I haven't bought any care labels. If that's not acceptable to them, I have another friend who runs a jumble sale, and while they're a bit good, the jumble sale, I'd rather they went to the jumble sale and somebody bought them to wear and enjoyed them, than they went to landfill. It's avoiding landfill is the big issue for me. I like the feel, I like wearing natural fibres. Don't usually sew with polyester, although there might be some polyester in some of my fabrics. I avoid it where I can, but that's mostly because of how the fabric feels on me. But then to the consideration, if it's a polyester t-shirt, it's going to be here for another 1,000 years, isn't it? So, yeah. Quick sew or involved sew, both. Most of the sews I've done recently have been involved sews, and that can get a bit wearing, and it's nice just to do something really quick. And a quick sew for me, a T&T that is a bit of a nice refresher for me, would be the Cashmerette Concorde T-shirt, which is my favourite. I need to make some shorter ones, some cropped ones. Keep thinking about finding a nice boxy tee pattern. Haven't done it yet, need to. I've tried some, they don't, got a nice one that fits yet. So I'm working on that. Social or solitary, both. Have my friend and I, Sandra Stitched, and I have started the Cheshire Sewing Social, which we hold once a month, usually the last weekend of the month. And we had 24 ladies to that. We've done 4 of them now. We've done 4. We have a lovely lunch that's included in the price. We're limited to 24 places, so as it gets running and people keep coming back, there might be a bit of competition for places. At the moment, it's just running very nicely. We've got a really nice social group of people taking part. It's just lovely. It's at a local village hall. So yeah, social sewing. And I am happy to travel to other sewing socials, but I haven't done very much of that yet. I was very tempted by Judy running So and So. She's got a sewing social, but she's near York, isn't she? And that is quite a trek for me. But I will certainly consider others. So both. I tend to sew normally on my own, but I do have sewing friends. Like fabric shopping with friends, like discussing, showing, got my first collaborative effort, my first collaboration with the lovely Pam from Sweet Pea Green, and we have a vlog coming very shortly on my first ever, I think it's her first ever as well, our collaboration. So watch this space. Exciting things are coming very soon. So social or solitary, so either. I tend to mostly sew on my own, but I love sewing with other people. Do I have a dedicated space? I do. I'm very, very lucky. Yes, and I have a dedicated space that I've recently refurbished, and I have my lovely king size wall bed, so I can convert my sewing space into a guest bedroom in about half an hour. It's brilliant. So yeah, labels or no? Labels or no? I do like a label. I don't always like the feel of a label. I'm really, really careful where I put labels, and my most recent dress I haven't put a label in because there wasn't an obvious place to put it. where it wouldn't irritate my skin. I don't like labels in certain places on my neck. I buy the Specky Seamstress labels. I also like, well, there's a number of label providers actually that I really like their labels, and I do like labels in things and on things, but I don't always put them at the back of the neck. This one I think has probably got a t-shirt and it's probably got a label in the back of the neck. It hasn't irritated me at all. It just depends where it is and how I've sewn it in and how sharp the labels are. But yes, I do like labels, but I don't always use them. And the final one. Number 20, the percentage of me made versus ready to wear. In the last 7 years, the only ready to wear garments I have bought have been a few bras, a couple of sports bras and a couple of ordinary bras, and a bee suit. That's it. Everything else for the last 7 years has been me made. Not always successfully, but and I have older garments than that are ready to wear in my wardrobe. I would say percentage of what I wear now, probably 80% of what I wear now is me made. And I just have a few of those garments. All my jeans are ready to wear, but they're all older than 7 years old. I don't have a pair more recent than that. Most of my coats are ready to wear. I've not made a coat yet. I plan to. I have the fabric for a couple. I do plan to. I make jackets, but I haven't made an outdoor type coat yet. And I made kind of gilet type coats, but I haven't actually, as I say, made a full winter coat or anything like that yet. Yeah, so I would say at least 80%, might be a bit more. I have some old ready-to-wear t-shirts that are, they're not nice enough to wear to go out in, or to really wear, to feel nice in around the house, but they're still absolutely perfect for gardening. And they're a merino wool with a nylon, so that and there's a lot of my merino wool stuff's got holes in, which is a bit of a shame. We had an issue about 3 years ago with clothes moth, and I had quite a lot of wool damaged. We seem to have solved that, and it's not been an issue since. And I'm sure it's something that we bought and brought in. My husband had bought a Marks and Spencer's merino jumper, and within not very long of him having it in the house, it was full of holes, and we seem to have everything seemed to get full of holes. So I don't know what was going on, but yeah, I got some stuff from Dragonfly. I got the attractant for the adults, and then I got the parasitic wasp for the eggs, and that's cleared it up. So I can recommend that. Very environmentally friendly. And that was number 20. Question number 20. So those are my answers. I hope I haven't waffled too much. Yeah, what did you think of my answers? Yeah, I'd love to hear. Let me know in the comments below, please, what you thought of my answers. I hope you've liked the video. If you're new to my video, do please consider subscribing. Give me a like, maybe. It's been lovely to have you along. I hope you enjoy your sewing. Hope you have a great weekend. And thank you very much for watching. And take care. And I'll see you, hope to see you again. Bye-bye.